But
Sounds
Chief
great.
Williams has served as the police chief of the Phoenix Police Department since October 2016. She leads the largest police agency in the state of Arizona. Now listen to this. She oversees a staff of nearly 4,000 employees and manages an annual operating budget that exceeds 700 million. A lot of zeros, y'all. She's a 32 years law enforcement vet who has also served as the police chief in the city of Oxnard, California. Chief Williams is a native Phoenician. She's a wife, and I can't tell you, she's such a proud mom to Alan and Cody. I told you, look at that. She grew up on the west side of Phoenix where she attended Maryvale High, and she is a proud alum of ASU. Go Sun Devils. So having said all that, you guys saw coming in the rules. Respect our book. Treat our book like a cherished belonging, okay? So respect our book. If you don't respect the book is free to walk. So respect our book. Get ready for this conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. With that, I turn it over to Chief Jeri Williams, and I will mute.
So thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. To your point, one of the best things in my life are the two children that I was blessed to give birth to. So I want to say thank you to Michael Shelton. I think Michael's on here somewhere, and the Black Student Union for inviting me to participate. To be honest, I'm surprised, especially in the current environment that's going on. It's nice to be recognized by our younger generation. So interesting dynamic to have a living book talk to you about my life, because I actually think my life is very ordinary, although most would say that it is definitely not. So let's start with the early stuff. I think we all learn better, though, to be honest with you all, by you asking questions. And if there is some reason why I can't answer a question, I will tell you why I can't answer it. Because in the current role that I sit in now, I'm responsible for protecting and maintaining not just the police department, but the city of Phoenix. So I'll just throw that out there. So as was mentioned, I'm a native Phoenician, grew up in West Phoenix, went to Maryvale High, and I happened upon law enforcement as an aside. And I say it that way because I had this dream. I'm a fine arts major, so anyone who's a fine arts major out there, stick with it. You can do anything. Trust me. All they care about is that you've gotten a piece of paper at the end of the day. So I am a fine arts major by training, but I thought I was going to be a flight attendant. So I went through the interview process with a company. That company told me I was too heavy to be a flight attendant. I like to eat too much, y'all. So me losing weight wasn't going to be an option. So when life hands you a path and you think your path is supposed to be going this way, and life tells you stop or pause, that's not always bad, because what that caused me to do is really focus my attention on being a police officer. So the city of Phoenix at the time, it's 1988, didn't have people of color, didn't have women properly representing the community that we serve. So there were special incentives, i.e. training sessions for those of us who were people of color and women to go through, so I would be better equipped to manage and handle the academy. When we think of law enforcement, I'm really thinking of people who can speak to and talk to the community members, who are natural problem solvers. I can teach you the training. I can't teach you how to necessarily treat someone with dignity and respect to a certain degree. You really have to have that in you. I can teach you to problem solve to a certain degree, but we're looking for humans who are here to serve and make a difference. So I had all that in me through my upbringing and growing up, but at the end of the day, I chose this job for probably 3 different reasons. So one, I knew there was going to be no day that was ever the same. And let me tell you, that is 100% accurate. No day is ever exactly the same. Actually, sometimes it seems like Groundhog Day when it gets pretty bad. Secondly, I was looking for a career with benefits. So there are retirement benefits. I've been able to get my master's degree. I've been able to almost get my PhD on this job because the city of Phoenix pays for it. So when you're considering career options, don't just think about the paycheck. It should be more about how is this going to help you progress in your life, even if you choose not to stay in whatever profession you start in. And then I think that the third piece was I needed something where I gave back and was challenging. So I can remember being a brand new officer in Maryvale precinct. Remember, I told you I went to Maryvale High School. So I came in contact with people that I arrested sometimes that I went to high school with. But at the end of the day, pretty much everyone that I had to take to jail because they committed a crime, they thanked me. They didn't thank me for putting them in jail. They thanked me for me treating them as a human being. For example, if I had to arrest a domestic violence suspect, I'm not going to arrest him in front of his children. We're going to have a conversation and we're going to walk outside because his children still need to see that human side and that dignified side of that dad. So I digress. So the reason why I promoted, and for everyone's edification, so you're a police officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a commander, an assistant chief, and a chief. So I tested to be a sergeant and a lieutenant, not because I thought I was all that in a bag of chips, because I wasn't. I actually tested to be a sergeant and lieutenant because I had bosses who treated me horribly. I had people who didn't know how to talk to humans, who didn't respect me as a person or as a woman of color. And I figured if they can be a boss, I can at least do that, right? So, lesson number 2, I guess, is I can always learn from someone, even if it's what not to do. So those experiences of negative supervision really made me focus on wanting to make sure at the end of the day that I treated my employees well, that I knew what made my employees tick, if you will, because I do believe leadership is a spectrum. I don't think I can lead certain people one way and others a different way. I really have to find what makes my employees tick and then dump in those skills so that they can be the better person that they want to be too. Let's move forward a little bit because I talked about being a sergeant and lieutenant. I left the Phoenix Police Department after being here for 22 years. I was an assistant chief when I left. I was the junior most assistant chief on the police department, and I was pretty much doing a lot of work. And as I saw some of my peers come into work and leave at 2, and I'm still here till 7 o'clock at night, I'm like, okay, let me kind of figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I knew I wanted to be a chief, but sometimes you have to leave home in order to come back home to do what you want to do. So the City of Oxnard, California is midway between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, and they were looking for a police chief. And I believe that the current chief at the time figured out that he had someone that he wanted to have. The city manager chose me, which is someone who was completely different. So that was probably one of the more challenging times in my life because I didn't know anyone in the city of Oxnard. I didn't know anyone in Oxnard Police Department, but it was one of the most amazing growth experiences, both personally and professionally, that I've had in my entire existence. So I had to learn how to run a police department from the ground up, not knowing anyone. I had to learn, making mistakes along the way, how to make sure I didn't make those mistakes. I think another lesson that comes from the Oxnard experience is, and I'm going to use religious terminology because that's how my brain works. If that's not you, you can fancy in whatever you wish to. But I remember a sermon my pastor gave probably 2 weeks before I announced I was going to California. And his sermon was, if you want to walk on water, you have to get out of your boat. So my boat was the comfort and security of the Phoenix Police Department at the time. My comfort was not wanting to experience stretching myself, because I do believe there are times that we just need to step out and stretch ourselves and try something new, even if it's going to be really hard and really challenging. And that's definitely what the Oxnard Police Department was. So I stayed there for 5.5 years, and then came back home to be the Phoenix Police Chief. Both times, I was the first female police chief for both agencies. And being the first carries with it great blessings, great responsibility. I do believe in the saying, to whom much is given, much is required. I have been given so much in my life by so many people that me giving of my time and leadership talents and efforts is definitely something that I really love. So let's move forward so I come back to Phoenix. You can read on social media, you can look all over the place to see the many things that are going on. But it would be very easy to shrink in a little shell and say, you know what, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, deuces, I'm out. But it takes a true fearless leader to stand through whatever storms there are, Because at the end of the day, I want to articulate that I do believe I have a great police department, period. I do believe that. And I know that because we've changed and adjusted policy, procedures, practices, how we hire people, you name it. But I need everyone to remember at the end of the day, I employ human beings. And human beings make conscious choices to do things sometimes that are outside of the scope of policy, procedure, and practice. When that happens, transparency and accountability has to prevail, but there is a process to get to that. So this instantaneous notion and idea of things happening, as fast as we can find it on Google and social media is not the world that I live in. My world lives in process, and I must follow those processes and procedures. Trying to think of what else. I saw something come up on the chat. I'm kind of trying to multitask, and I'm not the best multitasker, Dr. Ramos. So just a couple of things, and I'll open it up for questions and answers. We have so many amazing partnerships within this police department. We have advisory boards, we have community hiring panels, we work with the mental health community, we work with obviously the academic community because you all are here. We are looking for people who want to serve. Do you want to serve as a police officer? We're looking for you. You want to serve as a dispatcher? If you want to be a crime lab tech, we're looking for those. But there are so many tremendous opportunities, especially with Phoenix, because we're so big. I could literally say in the 22 years that I was here before that I've probably had 10, 15 different jobs. So, so I'm looking on the chat. So how can you get a job in law enforcement? Just go to cityofphoenix.com, City of Phoenix, look up City of Phoenix on your social media page, go to the link that says police officer, and that'll be a way for you to get onto the police department.
Maybe Nikki can put it in Nikki Hicks can put it in the chat.
Awesome.
Okay.
So
thank you, Nikki.
Miss Mary over there is dying laughing at me because I'm trying to remember the doggone link to get wherever. It's like, so Nikki will make sure that you all have that. Trust me, I am not the social media guru at all. What I would ask before I start answering some of the chat questions, when it comes to community, because you all represent a community. When you're in the academic setting, you are dealing with people who are different than you. You are dealing with people who weren't raised the way you were, who come from a different socioeconomic background. What we need from the community is patience in getting through some of these tough and challenging issues. What the community is expecting for us, or me in law enforcement, is for us to hear and listen and make the police reform changes that we're hearing and that we're seeing. And to be honest with you, we're working through that process, but it is a process, so it's going to take some time. Also, we need understanding. And as I mentioned, understanding that I employ human beings and that human beings are not robots. I can't put a microchip in someone's system to make them do everything great all the time. But I will say this, so we answer over 1 million calls for service. We interact with over 750,000 people on any given year. 99.9% of the time, that contact goes well. So we are unafraid of the truth. We're unafraid to change because we know that we need to. But at the end of the day, we're going to need to work with the community to get that done and make that happen. So who are the mentors?
Okay, let me try and
Okay.
read the questions to you. And then, so here's one of the things I ask all of my students to do. Breathe. So everybody on this call, on this session, don't tense up because there may be some tough questions coming up. And some of us know that people are still feeling away. So first of all, I'm going to ask everybody to breathe. Okay. So I'm going to basically go with the way the questions came in, and I think we will have enough time for each one of them. There's someone out here, Chief Williams, you need to know that they admire you so much and are sending you love. So you've got that coming at you. You mentioned when you were sharing your story that even when you had to make an arrest, you remembered that the person that you were arresting is human. We have someone who says that that's not common. So thank you for being a considerate officer. So
Dr. Ramos, thank you. Can I respond to that? So,
Okay.
sometimes I don't think the community understands and knows that you do have a voice too. So if that does not happen in your case, there are opportunities for you to file a formal complaint, submit that complaint online, call in that complaint, at least with Phoenix PD, because that's the only PD that I can speak about. With Phoenix PD, you can call a supervisor to the location and to the scene. So for whomever asked that question, I am sorry that your experience wasn't the same experience. But do know that's definitely a topic of discussion that we are having in all of our leadership meetings as we're drilling down and talking to the officer level, because at the end of the day, how you are treated during that contact matters. So I say this all the time, we build our trust or take away our trust one contact at a time, make it a good contact. And truth be told too, I don't know if you all know this, but all of my officers are armed with body worn cameras. So if you are a first responder, which means if you call 911, one of my folks in a blue suit are going to show up. He or she is going to be armed with a body worn camera. Their sergeant, that's second level, is going to have a body worn camera. Their lieutenant, third level, is going to have a body worn camera. And if you have to get to the command level, they are also, the patrol commanders are outfitted with body worn cameras too. So we are able to check and show and try to reinforce that service and customer service. So thank you for the question. And then Dr. Ramos, I think I saw something about mentorship. Someone asked a question about whether or not I had mentors. On the whole issue and topic of mentors, I never directly sought anyone to be a mentor. I didn't go up to someone and say, hey, Mike Frazier, can you be my mentor? It kind of happened organically. I had people in this organization, both male and female, of all ethnicities and ethnicities and religions, see something in me at a time. And if I was going down the wrong path, they would say, hey, look, Sergeant Williams, Lieutenant Williams, Commander Williams, I'm going to put you in this assignment because I need you to be more well-rounded. I say that to the group because you may not see what leadership potential you have in you, but when someone, I call it, taps you on the shoulder or says, hey, this position or this class or this project may be good for you, even if it feels uncomfortable, those have been my biggest growth moments when I've just jumped in to learn something new from scratch. And I don't know, Dr. Ramos, if you all talk about resumes and having a resume updated, keep that resume updated 100% of the time, because we don't want you to miss an opportunity because you didn't have your resume updated either on LinkedIn or on social media or whatever. So I would encourage you all to do that. But if you see something in a leader and it's something that you think you want to hone or grow in yourself, by all means, reach out to that person to see if they would be willing to help you and assist you.
Okay, that's great. There is a question about dirty park stories. I don't know if you're familiar with that. No?
I don't think I am. No.
Okay, the questioner, if you want that question answered, you'll have to amplify it a bit. There's another question about what was your most trying incidental storm?
I can name about 500 of them right now if I'm thinking and processing. I think for me in this space right now, what is the most challenging is making sure folks know that we are trying to change, and that changing culture is like turning a big airline carrier where you have people and individuals, and it takes time. Now, it does not mean that we're not trying, but it does mean that it's going to take some time. So being in this space as a police leader, being a woman of color, being a person of faith, I mean, I could keep going down the line. It's affording me an opportunity to look at what I'm doing here in the police department from a different lens. Some would say this would be one great time to get out of being a police chief because things are way too crazy. I look at it as a tremendous opportunity that will never come back around ever, probably in my lifetime. So what can I do to impact law enforcement here with policy, procedure, practice changes, messaging to employees, trying to message to the community, and how can I amplify that from a national perspective? So I sit on a number of different police reform committees across the country to get the voice of the community out to people who make those changes in other cities too.
Okay, this question kind of wraps around what you're saying, so I'm going to read them both. There's someone who wants to know what's being done to help weed out the police who may be racist. And also, I think a wraparound question is, what challenges do you have in reforming policing while maneuvering policies, practices, and police unions?
So first question on the weeding out the officers, as I mentioned, I choose from the human race and we're all flawed. So when I am made aware that someone has hate tendencies or racist tendencies, and I'm aware of it, I take action. And action to me is launching an investigation. Action to me, to some degree, sometimes has been terminating the employment of people who don't need to be officers anymore because of what they've said or what they've done. And truth be told, that's one of the hardest things that I do from a myriad of different fronts. It makes me sad that I have to do that, because I think when you take an oath of office that you think and perceive the same way that I do, treating people with dignity and respect. And it hurts my heart when I see people who don't do that, who wear this badge. But at the same time, I have a responsibility to make sure we're providing the best customer service for you and best policing services. And then the second question, Dr. Ramos talked about reforming and maneuvering policies and practices in police unions, so that the unions were put here in place to make sure that employees had a fair shake. So if we're going to change union laws, rules, and regulations, then you will need to change law, because it's a state law called the Peace Officers Bill of Rights. And if you all will Google that, it will show you what the laws and the rules are in Arizona. Jeri Williams can't change those. Dr. Ramos can't change those. You have to be an elected official, a policymaker at the state level to change those. So I just wanted to make sure that I put those out there. But that doesn't mean that I don't change the policies and procedures and practices. So I have a staff of folks who will give me information on some of the best practices that we're seeing across the country. We're also learning from consent decrees. So if you all will look up what a consent decree is, it's a judicial order that a judge is telling a police department or an agency or an entity that these are the list of things that you all need to do to get right. It's always been my contention that I did not want to have a consent decree, that I wanted to do the right thing for the right reasons. And oftentimes that's learning from others' mistakes. So we've been looking at consent decrees across the country to make sure we're able to lay out and be the best police department possible. But at the end of the day, if my employees don't believe and trust my leadership, then they're not going to listen to me either. So I walk this delicate balance and fine line between being the spokesperson and ambassador for the city of Phoenix, while at the same time trying to and working to constantly maintain the trust of the employees that I have also, but also maintaining the trust that I have in the community to some degree also. So it's a very delicate balance. I'm built sturdy, so I'm unafraid of work, but we do need the community's assistance and help, so much so that we've developed a community policy review committee. Most agencies don't have this. If I'm thinking about a new foot pursuit policy, if I'm thinking about banning chokeholds policy, if I'm thinking about using some kind of tactical technique or tool, we run this information through a policy review committee of community members, and they give us their feedback before I launch changing a policy and procedure. So we just started that this past year, somewhat as a result of some of the protests that we had. So thank you for that question.
Okay, I have a question here that someone is excited perhaps about joining the police department, because it says, will it be hard for someone who is a year out of high school to join law enforcement? I don't know if you can answer that.
So that's a great question. It depends on age. So in order to maintain an Arizona Pro certification, so each police officer has to be certified by a body. You have to be 21 in order to carry a gun. So if you are between 18 and 21, please reach out to Nikki Hicks, because she can talk to you about the cadet program that we have, and or ways to volunteer to get your foot in the door to make sure that you really know what you want to be. And then come 20 and a half, could put you in a police academy, and then by 21, you'll be able to carry a gun and be a police officer. But I would say this, whoever said that question, so this is the mom coming out of me. I believe that you should get a degree first, because the degree offers you opportunities that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a degree. And let me articulate really quickly. So you can't take a promotional exam without a degree. So if you're an amazing leader, if you are able to have people follow you, I want you to be a supervisor, and you can't be one without a degree. I will also say that it's really hard to get a degree once you start working, once you start having a family, once life starts happening to you. So if I may be a mom for a moment, let me say I would encourage you to get a degree first, and then come see me second, because we will always be here.
Well, I second you as a grandma. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Another. Oh, here's a light one, and then I want Bill Crawford is on the call. I want him to give a shout out and unmute after you answer this question. No. If you could be any superhero, who would you pick other than Jeri Williams? Okay. Superhero.
Man, okay, you guys are getting me on that one. So, you know, I used to say Wonder Woman. I'm not feeling. Oh, I'd be Iron Man. That's who I'd be. I wouldn't be Iron Woman. I'd be Iron Man. Only I'd be a girl. There you go.
There you go. Okay. Bill Crawford, Dr. Crawford, could you unmute and give that shout out that I see in the chat?
You have to unmute yourself, Dr. C. And Dr. Ramos, I have a hard out at 1:30 to get to.
Okay. All right. And I just want you to know that I'm sorry I couldn't unmute him. Let's see. Maybe I can. But okay. Dr. Bill Crawford is congratulating you on a recent award. And what would that be? I'm scrolling back up.
So Dr. Ramos, I think he mentioned, so thank you, Dr. Crawford, for that. I was recently appointed by the governor to the Arizona Peace Officer Standards and Training Board for eons, and I'm old, y'all. I just color my hair to cover up the grays. We did not have any people of color, nor did we have women on the board who were sworn officers. We had community members. So my first day on the job with that was 2 weeks ago, and it's great to have the opportunity to listen to different cases and making those hard calls on who should maintain their Arizona Post certification and who should not.
That is great. Okay, we do not want to keep you from your work. You all look in the chat. Ms. Hicks has put information about contacting her for PD employment, volunteer, community engagement opportunities. Her email is there. There's a link that will take you to Phoenix Police Department jobs. People are sending you love and applause and recognition. Chief Williams, we thank you for sharing with us today, for giving of your time, for giving of your heart.
So Dr. So can I give like some closing comments first, and then I will jump off.
Absolutely, it's yours.
Thank you all again for having me. It's always an honor to be able to at least try to help the next generation. To my fellow Tannerites out there, anybody from Tanner Chapel AME, shout out, hey. Haven't seen the inside of our church for a while, but love my Tanner folks. Just love you all to death. So parting words of wisdom, be open to mentorship, have that resume ready. Don't be afraid to try new things, even if you don't think you can do everything perfectly. Oftentimes bosses give folks credit for heart. If you were jumping all in and you were trying with all your might, boy, I would take that person any day than someone who doesn't want to work. We are all different in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I will say that me looking the way I look in a male-dominated profession was a benefit to me. I studied my rear end off when it came to processes, but at the end of the day, they remembered the Black female who came in, and killed it in a process. So it's very good to have some differences, because that makes you who you are. You can only be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else, because you trying to be somebody else means that you're not being true to yourself. And then lastly, never stop learning. Learning is a process. Learning is an opportunity. There are so many people across the world who want to have the opportunity to learn, and you all get the blessing of being able to do that at Chandler-Gilbert and to any of our Maricopa County community colleges. So stay inspired, stay in school, stay well, wear your mask. I should say that because it's like a community service announcement. So everyone be well, and thank you again, Dr. Ramos and BSU for the opportunity.
Dr. Ramos, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Crawford, now I can.
Yes, Chief Williams, I wanted to say congratulations to you on being appointed to the Arizona Post Board. It is about time. I know that you are going to provide them with some incredible leadership that they sorely need. So thank you so much.
Oh, you guys, thank you. You all have like all these little fancy like emojis that you can put on.
Look at you.
Mary, I am a hot mess here because I don't know how to do any of that.
Okay.
So thank you all. Y'all have a great rest of the day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.